Please remember, there isn't much time left in this season of giving to make your tax-deductible donation to our sister organization, St. Michael's Media, to help us with our overall efforts here at RealCatholicTV.com. Just click on the donate button. Thank you for your generous help, and have a very Merry and blessed Christmas.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Catholic News Roundup. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Christmas bombing disavowed. The death of at least 35 Catholics in Nigeria after a vicious church bombing on Christmas is being rebuked as un-Islamic in action by Muslim organizations around the world. The group Boko Haram, or quote, non-Islamic education is a sin, is claiming responsibility for the deadly explosion that occurred outside of St. Teresa Catholic Church on Christmas Day before Mass was celebrated. Cybernet News Service reports multiple Islamic organizations in the Western Hemisphere and even in Africa disown this latest bombing as Islamic, claiming that there is nothing in the faith of Islam that condones attacks on Christians. One thing that cannot be ignored, however, is the latest research, highlighting, for instance, that there are millions of Muslims across Africa and in Nigeria who agree that suicide bombing, if done in the defense of Islam, is perfectly acceptable. According to the Catholic News Service, Pope Benedict XVI condemns the attacks, saying that he will offer prayers for, quote, all those who have been stricken by this absurd gesture. Meanwhile, one Islamic regime is daring Western powers with war games. The Iranian Navy is flaunting what it calls its, quote, regional dominance of Middle Eastern Gulf waters, while government officials of the Islamic power are threatening the West. Cybernet News Service and the New York Times are reporting that the Parliamentary National Security and Foreign Policy Committee is calling the naval war games a warning to Western powers of its ability to close the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point in the shipping lanes of oil tankers. Iran's vice president is taking the fight directly to Obama, threatening to close the oil route if he signs legislation that would, ultimately, restrict his country's ability to further develop its nuclear program. The entire world depends on the Strait of Hormuz being open to import oil to support the economies of its countries, and while this may not be the first time Iran has threatened to close it, it is the first time in history they are demonstrating the military power necessary to do it of this magnitude. As the powers of Islam flex their muscle across the globe, big government is trying to work out Sharia law at home with unlawful headgear. Islamic headgear is now allowed as a so-called religious expression in the Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, or the JROTC in our country, dictated by the Department of Defense and brought to you by the Council of Islamic Relations, or CARE. It is being announced that wearing the hijab and the turban will be acceptable while in uniform. According to the Daily Caller, the new policy comes after a young female Muslim cadet in Tennessee was forbidden to wear her headgear in her homecoming parade, and CARE complained to Washington. It is this same organization that has been blacklisted by the FBI for suspected ties with the jihadist terrorist group, Hamas, though the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, apparently has no problem catering to their requests. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by NewOxfordReview.org, the voice of Catholic Orthodoxy, in print and on the web, and RenewAmerica.com, expanding the influence of America's grassroots in the cause of freedom.
Shifting Christians. The results are in. A newly published report says that Christians make up about 1/3 of the world's population, while Muslims are not far behind at 1/4. The data gathered by the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life starting in 2010 surveyed more than 200 countries and examined data reflecting a population of 6.9 billion, according to Zenit News Service story. The report takes into account a number of factors, such as the growth of Christianity globally over the last century, from around 600 million in 1910 to over 2 billion today, with 48% of Christians remaining the majority in some 158 countries and territories. The study also reflects a significant shift in Christian population, leaving only 26% living in Western Europe and more Christians living in the Americas, Sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Asia-Pacific region, particularly China, with some 67 million. To read more about this fascinating data, just click on the link right outside the screen. Agreeing to disagree. Gingrich says voters should support Obama if they think same-sex marriage is the most important issue in the upcoming election. According to a Fox News report, while presidential candidate Newt Gingrich was speaking to a crowd in Oskaloosa, Iowa, a man challenged him by asking how he was going to engage people who define themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals. Mr. Gingrich responded to the question saying in part, quote, "I think those for whom the only issue that really matters is the definition of marriage, I won't get their support. If they care about job creation, if they care about national security, if they care about a better future for the country at large, then I think I'll get their support," end quote. After the exchange, Gingrich and the unidentified man shook hands, agreeing to disagree. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure and tune in tomorrow for your daily dose of Catholic News Roundup right here on RealCatholicTV.com. And be sure to check out The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tell all your friends about us. And as always, God bless you.